One.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Chatham Select Board, April 27th, 2021 meeting. It's 5:30 p.m. and this is a remote participation only meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify me. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 134-208-476#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And so at this time, I'm just going to ask that if you are listening in to the meeting, on your phone, you can mute your phone until it's time to speak, and as well as mute your audio on your Teams app at this time. And remember that we are conducting a business meeting, so if you have to leave your computer or anything else, please just disable your video as well. Okay, so we're going to take a roll call of the Select Board to begin, to see if we have a quorum. Board Member Kokolis.
Present.
Board Member Matters.
Present.
Board Member Dykins.
Present.
Board Member Nicastro.
Present.
And the chair is present, so we do have a quorum. Our first order of business before we get to public announcements is acceptance of the meeting minutes of April 13th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Peter, I move that we approve the April 13th minutes of the Chatham Select Board.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any substantive edits to the meeting minutes? Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I just have one on page 19.
Okay.
In the middle of the page, the motion, the third line in the motion, which begins property in Orleans on the 2021 annual town meeting warrant pending, would strike the word pending and insert the phrase contingent upon a. So it would read contingent upon a community preservation recommendation. That was the actual language that we did.
Okay. Anything else from the board? None? All right, let's take a vote to approve. Jeff?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, thank you. All right, our next is, make sure I'm throwing the right thing away. Our next is public announcements and agenda item requests, and I have a couple before I turn to the board. Tomorrow night, just as a reminder, we are having a joint meeting with the Orleans Park and Rec, which is their actual Board of Selectmen. And we are discussing and voting on the terms of the successor of the North Beach Agreement, which will replace the existing agreement that expires on the April 30th, 2021. Another is a deadline about annual town meeting. The deadline to register to vote to participate in the 2021 annual town meeting on June 12th and the town election on June 17th. The deadline to register to vote is May 21st, 2021. You can register to vote online, download a mail-in form, or pick up a printed application at the town office vestibule at 549 Main Street. If you're new to Chatham or Chatham is now your primary resident, please make sure to register to vote. Additionally, a child care will be available at town meeting by reservation. Drop-off begins at 11:30 a.m. on June 12th at the community center. You may make a reservation via email to Susan Maybiel at smaybiel@chatham-ma.gov with your name, address, contact phone number, your child's name, age, and any medical issues in the email. And to allow for appropriate staffing, the deadline to make the reservation is on noon, June 11th. All reservations will be confirmed by email. Okay, and then I think lastly, Jill sent around, the town manager sent around to our committee and board liaisons that there is a free training webinar being held May 12th at 11:30 to 1 p.m. It's being hosted by the Massachusetts Select Board Association and the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association. And this is to discuss codes of conduct for town boards and committees, as well as issues around harassment at town hall. So that's being held May 12th, and Jill has sent the link. I just encourage the board to attend the meeting yourself if you have time, but also to speak out to the chairs of your committees to remind them of that webinar that's happening. All right, that's it for me. And I was just wondering if any other board members had, and their hands are up. Jill's hand's up first, so let's have Jill go first. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. I want to note that the chair and I, on behalf of the select board, had issued a certificate of appreciation to Georgia Farrell for her 22 years of service to the citizens of Chatham, and we wanted to congratulate her on her retirement on April 23rd, 2021. So congratulations, Georgia.
Georgia was with Park and Rec, correct? She was there for, yes.
Yes, and I don't have a plaque to show you because she was in the office today to pick it up, but I told her that I would read it as we had prepared it.
Okay, well, congratulations to Georgia. Great, thank you, Jill. Dean?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think she's listening in or on this call in case she wants to say something, but.
Georgia, are you listening in? Would you like to say anything? She's listening in. Okay.
Madam Chair, I just had a request with respect to the tonight's agenda.
Okay.
Under the new business item DC, the West Chatham Roadway project update. I would like to, the Selectman Meadows had requested, I would like to request that we allow public comment during that particular agenda item, as we have done previously on the West Chatham Roadway project updates.
Great. I'll just take a consensus from the board if everybody feels that that's fine. We can go ahead. All right, just a note to the audience that when we get to, I'm going to review the agenda now and explain that there is a public comment period. If you are here to speak on the West Chatham Roadway, you may wait until we get to that agenda item to speak. You're also welcome to speak during the public comment period. So what we're discussing tonight on our agenda, a couple of items here. We have
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are we going to have some part of the meeting where we can have agenda item requests? I think you skipped over it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't ask the public about it. So thank you for reminding me, Herbie. I honestly, I thought about this all day, that I had to remember to ask the public about this, and I didn't. So do you have an agenda? Okay, go ahead.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
There is a lot of conversation in town about our proposed affordable and attainable housing. There seem to be two sides. One side is saying that once they're built, anybody can come in, doesn't matter if they're from Chatham or not. The other side is saying that when we built the project on Kroll Road, we gave people with connections to Chatham a first crack at getting housing. And I actually heard that repeated the other night at a planning board meeting. Two very different views on this. So I'd like to see it discussed as an agenda item before town meeting so that the townspeople can have some really solid answers, because I need that answer to be able to vote, and I know other people do too. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Herb. Yep. I think we'll plan on doing a little housing presentation. I think we've talked about it. Any other public have agenda item requests or public or announcements? Please raise your hand or speak out? Okay, not hearing any. All right, now we'll go to a review of the meeting tonight. We're heading into new business, and we'll do a coronavirus update with our town manager and our director of our health agent, Judith Giorgio. Then next we have a consent agenda. We have an Arbor Day proclamation and a consideration for application for farm winery to vend at Chatham Farmers Market. And then we'll move on to our business agenda items. Before we do the consent agenda, we will have public comments. Gosh, we have a week off and I'm not following my own agenda. We'll have public comments where you'll be able to speak on our business agenda items, the Coast Guard, Cape Light Compact. As I said, the Roadway project, you can speak then or speak during the discussion. The wood waste reclamation facility ownership and lease transfer, a reconsideration of reappointment of town council. And then we ourselves, after that, will vote on the consent agenda. We will go to our business agenda. After we finish our business agenda, we will go into executive session with no return to open session. So that's tonight's lineup as we go forward. So if we're all set to go, then we will ask our health agent, Judy Giorgio, for a COVID-19 update. Welcome, Judy.
Madam Chair, we actually have Dr. Bob, the Director of Health and Natural Resources.
Okay.
Yeah, Shereen, I think that was a carryover from your meeting 2 weeks ago.
Got it.
And didn't get changed. So anyway.
So our
right.
Director of Health and Natural Resources. Go ahead, Dr. Bob.
Okay.
Right.
So just quickly some numbers, and then I'll get into some of the other issues or topics that came up today, because this afternoon there was a lot of breaking news on the COVID-19 front. So as of this afternoon in Barnstable County, we had 13,448 cases, and that was an increase of 14 cases from yesterday. And it was an increase of 471 cases since the board last met on April 13th. There were 461 deaths in Barnstable County, which is an increase of none from the previous day. And that was an increase of 8 deaths since the board last met back on the 13th. In Chatham, specifically, since the pandemic began, or since we started keeping counts back on January 1 of 2020, we have had 318 cases in total in Chatham. We have had 13 cases so far in April of this year, and we currently have 2 active cases. And by active, I use that to indicate that the individual is still within their 10-day mandatory isolation period from the diagnosis of COVID-19. And in addition, we've had 31 cases resolved since during April. So let me share my screen here, and I will quickly show you some of these graphically. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. And here is our case count, our monthly case count since the pandemic began in January, or really began in March of 2020. And you can see the spike that occurred back in December, January, and February of this year. The then slight uptick in cases that we experienced on Cape Cod as a result of the P1 variant in the Mid-Cape area back in March. And then how things have dropped off fairly substantially so far in the month of April. In terms of the age demographic of individuals that have had cases of COVID-19 in Chatham, you can see this graph here. Again, we've had 318 confirmed cases since the beginning of the pandemic. And you can see how the age demographic has pretty well evened itself out recently. If you remember, last spring, last summer, and into the early fall, the greatest hit of COVID-19 was in the older demographic, if you will. But since the beginning of this year and the rollout of vaccines with the older demographic being those eligible first, and a real concerted effort to get them to be vaccinated, recently we've seen the younger demographic, younger age groups, say 59 and less, have been more heavily hit, or more heavily represented, I should say, in the confirmed cases. And that's consistent with what we're seeing across the state. With the latest update from the state over the last 2 weeks, 21%, or roughly 1/5 of the cases in Massachusetts, have been in the 20 to 29-year-old demographic. So we are definitely seeing a shift from the older demographic to the younger. And you'll see that again in a second when I show the current vaccination status. Just quickly, because there was a significant change in Chatham last week when the state's weekly public health report came out, and Chatham moved back into the gray zone, the lowest of the 4 color-coded classifications that the state used, red being highest, then yellow, then green, and then gray. So as of last week, Chatham had moved back into the gray zone. Our percent positivity in Chatham was at 2.1%, and these are as of last Thursday because these reports only come out once a week. The Barnstable County rate last week was at 4.3%, while the statewide average was at 2.3%. So even last week, Barnstable County was still higher than the state average, again, reflecting that kind of mini surge that took place in the Cape over the last, say, 5 to 6 weeks. And then finally, in terms of graphics, let me just, well, actually, I am going to show one more. But here's the vaccine status. And you've seen this before, and I include 2 graphs here. So we've got the graph as of April 13th, and then the graph as of April 20th. And again, these are always about a week behind, and the data is always as of a Tuesday. So this is based on data that came out last Thursday. But the important thing to note is, you know, the 3 upper demographics, so 50 years and older, we're making great progress in getting those people vaccinated, which in many respects makes sense because they are the ones that have been eligible for the vaccine the longest. But we are seeing upticks in the younger demographics, and last week, for the first time, we're actually now seeing the 0 to 19 age group represented on the graph. Prior to that, they were not even represented on the graph because the state did not provide numbers if there was less than 30 individuals in a particular range. So last week was the first time we actually started to see that at about 6%. So not only are the overall numbers increasing in the various age groups, but also the breakdown between partially vaccinated and fully vaccinated are also shifting, which we would expect as more people are vaccinated and more people get their second doses and fall into that fully vaccinated category. We're seeing a shift to more people being fully vaccinated than partially, which is great news. And I would expect that to continue now that as of last Friday, the the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is again approved for widespread use. So that'll be very important because a lot of people like that vaccine because it's only the single shot. Massachusetts continues to lead the nation in terms of the number of individuals either fully or partially vaccinated. So that's great news. We haven't seen substantial vaccine hesitancy in Massachusetts, although we are starting to see it show up. There are a lot of appointments currently available that, you know, are going unused, if you will. And I sent out some information earlier today that Cape Cod Healthcare has now activated an online registration system for COVID-19 for anyone 16 years of age and up. So basically, starting on the 19th of this month, Anyone 16 years of age and older is now eligible to receive the vaccine. And Cape Cod Healthcare has actually now opened it up through a web portal. People can go on and they can create, they can basically set their own vaccine appointment up. Prior to that, Cape Cod Healthcare was reaching out, to patients and whatnot, or on recommendations from the various towns to schedule appointments. But they now have enough vaccine available that they can do it that way. And we're seeing the same thing at the state and the county level as well. A lot of vaccine appointments are out there and available. So I urge anyone who hasn't yet gotten an appointment to go ahead and make one through any of the various venues to keep the success rate that we're seeing here ongoing. And then I just wanted to touch base on a couple of the big news events for today. And I'll start with the state. The state announced earlier today a number of changes that will be taking place, some as early as this Friday. So starting this Friday, the face covering or the mask mandate is being relaxed in outdoor settings. So masks will no longer be required in an outdoor setting where individuals can social distance. And I think that's important. It's not a 100%, you no longer need to wear a mask outdoors, but if you can social distance, if you're walking along, out walking the dog with your wife or your husband and your kids, and you're not interacting with other people, you would not need to wear a mask. If you're out exercising, alone, running, or, exercising on the beach, and you're well separated from others, you would not need to wear a mask. But if you're in settings where, you can't maintain that social distance, and I know one of the areas of interest is Main Street and Chatham, and keep in mind that the Chatham Board of Health put that mask mandate for downtown, the Main Street area, as well as the Fish Pier Observation Deck, the Lighthouse Overlook, and the transfer station. Their local mandate, the Board of Health mandate, went into effect before the statewide mask mandate. So the Board of Health will be meeting Monday. We've put this item on their agenda for discussion, but I would fully expect at this point, unless things change drastically between now and then, that the board will maintain their mask mandate, because in those areas, it is very difficult to social distance. And that's why the board put the mask mandate in place in the first place. So that becomes effective on April 30th. And just to reiterate, face masks are still required at all times in indoor public spaces. So the change that's taking place Friday in Massachusetts only affects outdoor spaces. So if you're in an indoor public place, masks are still required. And then some of the other changes that are taking place announced by the governor today, beginning on May 10th. So on Monday, May 10th, larger venues such as Fenway and Gillette Stadium and those kind of large outdoor stadiums and whatnot, they will be able to increase their capacity from 12 up to 25%. Some additional phase 4, step 2 industries such as amusement parks, theme parks, and outdoor water parks will be able to open at 50% capacity. Road races and other large outdoor organized amateur and professional group athletic events will be able to take place with staggered starts after submitting a safety plan to either the local Board of Health or the state DPH. And I know one that everybody's interested in, singing will be permitted indoors in restaurants and other venues with strict social distancing requirements. So, and there's been a lot of interest and a lot of questions about singing primarily in restaurants and all. So there will be additional guidance coming out, but that will be allowed starting on May 10th. And then effective on May 29th, the gathering limits will change, and gathering limits will increase to 200 people indoors and 200 people outdoors for event venues, public settings, and private settings. And then some other additional phase 4, step 2 industries will be permitted to open, including street festivals, parades, and agricultural festivals, at 50% of their previous capacity, and after they submit a safety plan to the local Board of Health. So one of the issues that we're going to be talking about in Chatham shortly will be some of the summertime events, things like the July 4th parade and the band concerts, and how we might manage those logistically with this 50% capacity limitation, and whether or not it makes sense to have those events given that limitation. And then the other thing that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in, bars, beer gardens, breweries, wineries, and distilleries will be able to reopen starting May 29th, subject to the restaurant criteria that are currently in place, with a 90-minute time limit and no dance floors being open. And then in terms of the specifics related to restaurants, the criteria that they serve food with alcohol will be lifted, and the maximum table size will increase to 10 from the current level of 6. And then the other big news is that beginning right now, the governor indicated that beginning August 1st, all other industries in Massachusetts will be able to reopen without restrictions, and the gathering limits will be rescinded. That's predicated upon, obviously, the continued good positive news that we've been having in Massachusetts regarding number of cases, hospitalizations, and the great vaccination rates that have been taking place. So that was kind of the news from the Commonwealth today. And I just wanted to quickly touch on some news that came out of CDC today. And let me just share my screen here quickly and show you a graphic that I think puts a lot of this into perspective. And I apologize for the small size, but it's kind of a big graphic. But CDC came out with some new updated guidelines today, and we've posted this graphic on the town's website, as well as it's going to be up on Channel 18. But they've clarified, or they've provided better guidance on what fully vaccinated people can do versus unvaccinated people. And some idea of the level of risk of various activities, obviously, whether it's indoors or outdoors. But CDC, like a lot of the states, is relaxing their guidance for outdoor events and relaxing a lot of their guidance for fully vaccinated people. So again, this is an effort to really recognize where the greatest risk for transmission of COVID-19 is, which is in indoor environments, and also to recognize that once individuals become fully vaccinated, and as we've said before, fully vaccinated is 2 weeks after you've received your second dose of either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, or 2 weeks after the single dose of the J&J vaccine. So this graphic really helps people see where they stand and what activities they can safely undertake as they go through the vaccination process. So with that, Shireen, that's all I wanted to pass today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I got a couple. So what you just put up, the CDC, that was recommended guidelines, obviously, because there's no way we're going to be able to enforce that kind of, you do this, you can't do that.
Right.
Correct. Okay, just to make that clear.
That is recommended guidance. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess what I'm kind of concerned about when we're going through this whole transition period of time is the perceived confusion people will have about, maintaining our Board of Health regulations that are still in place. I mean, it's obvious that, downtown can be crowded, so that environment is conducive. So isn't the transfer station. These are all really important places to keep the mask mandates in place that the town has. And the Board of Health will consider that going forward. There is, with the COVID task force that I've been serving on with Senator Sears, the discussion started to come up about these matters, and they're working on some signage for businesses. I happened to be into a local business today where the shopkeeper was extremely nervous and confused because people are coming in obviously and saying, well, I'm vaccinated. I don't need a mask anymore. And
Right.
I said that, you just need to understand that they still need to go in. If you go into an indoor setting, you do need to be masked. That the vaccine does not stop the spread. It stops you from having a bad case or having COVID. And people have to remember that it's still something can be carried. So that's all I really wanted to say about it. And Dean's hand is up. So Dean, if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, just with respect to the chart you put up on the vaccination schedules, the vaccination rates. So fully vaccinated in those charts reflects the 2-week wait period. Do we know that to be the case?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And with respect to the mask requirement of the state, and I understand our Board of Health is going to be discussing the local requirement Monday, and I would expect, because I think they've been doing a very fine job as well as the staff, they'll continue to monitor that going forward. Was there any discussion at the state level with respect to the August 1st relaxation protocol about relaxing the statewide mask mandate for public places?
None that I'm aware of. This information just came out this afternoon. All we've seen so far is the press release from the governor's office with this information. We have not seen the actual orders. These are all predicated upon governor's orders, but we haven't seen the actual order yet. But I suspect that, as we go between now and August, there's going to be a lot more information coming out than we got today. We actually had our DPH call at 9:30 this morning in advance of the governor's announcement. And then unfortunately, a Western Massachusetts Board of Health kind of leaked it. So the governor's office was scrambling earlier midday today to get the information out. And actually the press release came out before the governor actually had his press conference. But one thing that was very clear is, I don't want to say this has happened quickly, but there's still a lot of information. We don't have the actual orders. We don't have all the industry specific guidance yet that's been updated to reflect all these changes. That will be coming out over the next days and weeks. And so I suspect we will get more information, and depending on how things go, we may see the mask mandate, statewide even relaxed further as time goes on. But as Shireen indicated, even the CDC is indicating that even fully vaccinated people in certain circumstances need to continue wearing a mask. That just because you've been fully vaccinated, you can still get sick with COVID. But for fully vaccinated individuals, it's usually a much milder case. There's almost a minuscule chance of hospitalization and a minuscule chance of death, but you can still get it. And so that's why the mask mandate or recommendation from CDC and others is still in place.
Yeah, I do think we're going to continue to see more and more pressure mounted on the CDC and on the governor about about relaxing the mask mandate, because I think the public is kind of tired of it. I understand the reasons for it. We all wear the mask as we should. We should all get vaccinated. But I think we're going to see that over the coming months, especially if the infection rates continue to decline across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Bob, great report once again. Any intel on whether there's any feedback yet on the pause for J&J and whether the public's reluctant to have J&J over the other two vaccines? Any intel anywhere on that?
I've seen it both ways. We are doing a vaccine clinic tomorrow for the second group of our homebound individuals. Yeah. When we contacted them last week, because it was originally scheduled and had to be put off because of the loss of the J&J, when they were contacted that we were rescheduling it, we got a fair number of them that said they'd prefer not to get the J&J, so we were able to switch to Moderna.
Yeah.
with the cooperation of Outer Cape Health Services. Unfortunately, that means, our EMTs now have to make 2 trips to those houses, spaced the weeks apart. But we're going to do that. They stepped up to the plate. We're going to make that happen. But then I've heard other people that are, still more than willing to get the J&J because of the fact that it's only the single shot.
Right.
So I think at this point, it's based on what I've heard and seen, it's kind of split.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Any questions from the remote participants, the public? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank
To
you.
be continued. Our next is from our town manager, Jill Goldsmith. Jill, hi.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing further to report. We're still working through the transitional period. And while the governor had lifted some of the restrictions to August 1st, the emergency order, the emergency declaration has not been extinguished. So that's still in place. So what that means for us is that there's still that requirement that's been waived for in-person quorum requirements. And I know many cities and towns want to keep that in effect. So that means to allow either a hybrid or virtual meetings to continue and not have to have in-person quorum requirements. So that's still to be continued. And again, really just trying to process the information that Bob just received and was announced today, and working forward with our reopening plan for town offices as well.
Okay, great, thank you. We have been talking a little bit, but nothing determined about whether the Board of Selectmen would start to meet at some point this summer, whether it be in a hybrid form or not. Has there been any further consideration on that, or?
We haven't discussed it internally, and on today's virtual meeting with the MMA and the Lieutenant Governor, I think all of the managers had said that we want to have some type of hybrid type of meeting, especially for traveling time and so forth, for consultants or other presenters at the meetings. And the Lieutenant Governor heard us, but I'm not sure anything will be decided between now and August 1st, but they're relying on data input, and the more input and data we can give them, maybe the quicker they can make a determination.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jill from the board? Any questions from the public for Jill? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you, Jill. Okay, so our next item is the public comment period, and this is where you may comment on our business agenda items. And I just want to make a note, if you're here to present or discuss any of the items formally, then you'll be included in the business agenda. But if you have a comment on a business agenda item, this is the time that you may raise your hand or speak out if you're on the phone. And our business agenda items, I mentioned before, we're on the Coast Guard, Cape Light Compact, the West Chatham Roadway project. We're going to reserve a comment to that period of time. The wood waste reclamation facility, and reappointment of the town council. Is there any remote participants that would like to comment at this time on those agenda items? Okay, I'm not hearing any. We're going to move forward with our consent agenda, which is an Arbor Day proclamation, which is done every year from the Friends of Trees, as well as permission for a farm winery to vend at the farmer's market. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second, Peter.
Okay, all right, let's take a vote. Peter?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. All right, we'll move forward with that. Okay, now we're going to move into our business agenda item, and the first item is the Coast Guard update. Again, we are continuing the saga of this, and this is just a Corey and I had met with the sector folks and the harbor master and the town manager and Dr. Duncanson a while back. And we just had sent a letter out that we approved a week ago. You can see it in your packet. But we had talked about a little bit of strategy and policy going forward that we wanted to discuss with the board. I don't know if Stuart's on, if he wants to give us an update, because he did put a memo in about the Coast Guard sea state data that we have said we feel is flawed, and that the Coast Guard is taking our Harbor Masters Department is taking the initiative to record data as much as they can. Stuart, do you want to speak a little bit more to that before I get into our policy and strategy on outreach?
Sure, Shireen. Good evening, everybody, or afternoon.
Thank you.
We've been trying to track the sea state on Chatham Bar and weather conditions. Typically, the Coast Guard has done this. In years past, they would get what's called bar reports from transiting fishermen, and they would also go out and take bar reports so they could report those conditions to recreational boaters and fishing vessels alike that use both inlets. And they would know if they were responding to a case, the Coast Guard would know what they were going to be encountering before they even got underway. That seems to have waned over the recent years. And what we have seen is when they do take or they do give reports over the marine radio, that the conditions that they're reporting are not accurate. And we've been trying to log that to demonstrate to them that their data collection is flawed, and thereby their decision to not have surf boats here is flawed. So that's a little bit of what we've been trying to do, and we think that will be, helpful in changing their minds.
If you noted in the memo, just for the public's consideration, the harbor master notes that we heard this winter from the Coast Guard radio broadcast that the Coast Guard reported 2 to 4 foot breaking seas when we had a gale force winds out of the east, and the breaking surf from the harbor master's observation were at least 8 to 10 foot seas. So, and that their methodology of recording this is different than it has been. Another note that Stuart had shared with us it was that we were told at our meeting that the Coast Guard wasn't sure when the 45 footers would show up to Chatham, and it wasn't a week later that one of them showed up. So in anticipation of all of this and the fact that we're concerned about the safety of our mariners, not just the commercial fishing fleet. We're concerned, and we're discussing. Corey and I were discussing with Stuart and the team that met with the Coast Guard, was that we have a recreational boating community that might not be as seasoned or as trained as our commercial fleet is, who traverse the bar. From not just Chatham, but from our surrounding communities. We also have 2 large resort hotels that charter boats out there as well. And so the bigger concern here is a more holistic look at the safety of the community from a broader stroke, and how many people are actually trying to access, and the fact that there would be no resources at the fish pier, which is where they have been, to be able to make safe assessments and to make safety assessments and to be available to any emergencies no longer exist. So in having a meeting last week, we talked about some strategies going forward about how we can engage in discussions. So our advocate in DC, Jeff Pike, has been engaged in connecting with our legislative delegation in DC. And what we wanted to do was make some local noise in getting some letters and some outreach done from our surrounding communities. So we have put in your packet, you'll see that there is a press release that is going to go out to our Jill is going to send it out to town managers and select boards, local select boards, to ask them to write comments to the commander of the 1st Coast Guard District on this issue of the designation and the lack of a protocol that addresses the issues of the surf at the bar. So that's going to happen. We also are engaging in a fishing community. There'll be outreach to fishing and boating organizations that surround the waters of the Pleasant Bay area, like Pleasant Bay Boating, Waquasit, Chatham Bars Inn. The Fishing Alliance has been approached. They said that they're going to do a letter. Fishing Partnership is doing a letter, and we're reaching out to them as well to be partner in making this an area of concern. Last week, the county commissioners, through efforts with Commissioner Mark Forrest, presented this issue to the county commissioners, and they have voted to write a letter as well. So we're trying to get the attention of people higher up from the sector and within the delegation in DC. So that's what we're trying to do here. And if you guys have any questions or you have any other thoughts about what we should do to connect, but basically we wanted to let you know in this memo that this is where we're at in our advocacy to change the designation back. So Dean, your hand is up first. Go ahead, Dean.
I think Corey was ahead of me, Shireen.
Okay.
So I'm
Go
happy
ahead,
to
Corey.
defer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Corey, your hand didn't show up in the list, Corey, but I see your hand in your by your face. Okay, Corey.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's really disappointing that the Coast Guard has not been very transparent with the information they've been providing the town of Chatham. It's frustrating. You want to have a healthy working environment, relationship with the Coast Guard, and it's absent at the moment. Having the 45-footer show up last week and one of the 42s pulled, taken a little back by that because didn't think it was going to happen that soon. Anyone paying attention to any of the boat sales going on the Cape right now, people are buying boats hand over fist. There's going to be a lot of people on the waters this summer, many seasoned, many not seasoned. We do have a lot of volume out there, and there's going to be needs for certain resources out there. And the direction the Coast Guard is taking right now is not to the benefit of anyone in this region. So unfortunately, I feel like we're 3 steps behind in the process because of being kept in the dark for a lot of this information. And we're going to have to do some scrambling to kind of reach out to our resources to make some ground up, because it is essential that the Coast Guard, have a presence in this region, but is at a level that is that has the resources, the training, and the vessels that really are appropriate for this region. And some of the data collections that have been mentioned by Stuart, we need to resolve that because it's not even a shade off. It is night and day, some of this data. So I hope we can move forward. I hope we can get this back in the direction that is best for the town of Chatham and our community. But it is very frustrating to be 3 steps behind, being kept in the dark with someone I thought we had a very good relationship with in the Coast Guard. But I look forward to public input, and let's see if we can move this thing forward as best as we possibly can. Thank you.
Yep. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the work that you and Corey and Stuart and town manager have done in this area. And I also appreciate the fairly comprehensive strategy that you just outlined, Shireen. I wanted to ask Stuart in particular, because I think he and I had a conversation one time about the efforts of the Coast Guard in the past to merge Chatham with Provincetown and how that was defeated. Are there any steps that were undertaken back then, Stuart, or even Shireen or Jeff might have been around for that, that we might want to undertake now that we haven't included yet in the array of measures that Shireen outlined?
Well, it's an easy thing to say, but it was a different time. We had different circumstances. We had, we had a more active federal representation, I would say. We had a lot of faith, a lot of help from Congressman Jerry Studs. He was really instrumental in a number of different areas for Chatham, and one of them was the Coast Guard, and another was our federal dredging efforts. So I don't know whether that level exists at the moment. I'm not being critical. I personally don't see that. The Coast Guard itself has changed. As you know, after the 2001 terrorist attacks in New York and Washington, they were merged into the newly formed Homeland Security Department, and have if you read about the Coast Guard, you'll see that their efforts are all over the world. They are very heavily vested in the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean. It's a very large service, and they're assisting their Navy partners. I don't know whether we saw that a lot 30 years ago. That's just been a change. They're very heavily concentrated on anti-terrorism. Shireen, how many times did we hear active shooter mentioned at the meeting?
I was shocked at that was the major concern of the Coast Guard, that there would be an active shooter issue at on one of the ferries, and that we're prioritizing that as a matter. I was just shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it's a major focus of theirs, in addition to the whole law enforcement function. So it's just a different time. I think that the Coast Guard's been very clear about this, and that they were not going to give up their search and rescue endeavors. But a decade ago, the commandant was very clear in that their main focus was anti-terrorism, and that's the direction that they were going to go. So I think there's a lot of things that have come together to end up where we are now. We've heard other people say, and myself, that the reason the Coast Guard is here is because it's a very difficult, challenging, dangerous area. They can't be the first ones to leave or to downgrade their capabilities. That's the wrong direction. So we've had this argument with the Coast Guard over at least my 30 years, at different times, whether it be station large, station small. I think we should be paying attention to. I know we've heard that from our friends in the legislature that the closing of Station Chatham is not in the plans, but they're on the cusp of doing a nationwide review of their stations and districts and seeing whether they're appropriate. And that makes me nervous, because we were also told that we'd always have surf capability here. We'd always have surf capable boats. And so it's hard to go on what they say. You have to go on their actions. And, one of my concerns I did want to bring up, because Corey kind of reminded me in mentioning this, and that is, yes, they brought in their 45-foot boat. It's a very capable boat, by the way. It's a nice boat. It's just in the wrong place, in my estimation. But also, their training is, they don't do surf training. They're not doing that anymore. Now they're not going to be doing heavy weather training. So when they're doing evaluations of the surf conditions. You don't have people who have been taught, trained, and encouraged on how to make sense of that, how to measure wave height. You can't do it from the parking lot. You have to get underway, and that sort of thing just isn't a priority anymore. Why? Because they're not going there. They're going to send a helicopter, and I won't beat a dead horse, but I think that's the wrong direction.
The other piece to that as well is that they've put the onus on the commercial fishing fleet in requiring safety at sea training, as well as the new requirement will be stability training. And that's well and fine for commercial fishermen. They take care of themselves, but that doesn't mean that something couldn't happen in a moment's notice going over the bar. And that's a worry that they have every time they leave and every time they come back. And they're being food producers, their safety should be a priority. Obviously they are for the community, but the people that aren't being trained and have, can plunk down $250,000 on a boat and just be handed the keys and can get in it and they can run it east is just beyond, fathomable that they have the training and the skills to be able to handle any emergency like that. So their safety is problematic. And the onus of all of that is going to be put on the resources that the town of Chatham has in their harbor master department. And we're going to be the first ones there, or they're going to be the first ones there when there's a problem. And I don't know, we've got this station that sits up there on a hill and overlooks everything that happens. It goes beyond me that this is where we're at one of the most famous stations that the Coast Guard has ever had in their history of maritime history. So I'll get off my horse here, but Peter is next.
Well, I had another.
Oh, follow up. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Stuart, for articulating, and I hope you continue to do that. The real underlying flaws in their program. I wanted to ask if, with respect, I guess this is directed to the town manager, with respect to the press release, and I know that's going to be shared with the various other towns. Are we going to request that the various boards, select boards, take this up on their agenda as a request from the town of Chatham to send a letter or communication to our legislative and executive leadership? Or is that part of the plan?
I hadn't specifically noted that, considering that I think that most town managers or select boards would consider it. I think I need input from the board and Stuart. Time is of the essence. We were planning on providing an updated draft letter for them to just take and send directly to the Rear Admiral. But if the board would like me to ask for them, certainly ask for the board members to take it up at a meeting. It certainly gives more attention to it and more PR to the actual action. I just wasn't sure at this point if time was of the essence, and so I just need to check in on that.
Well, thank you. I don't want to interfere with the progress against the time constraints. So, we may want to talk about that this evening. But I know we frequently get requests from other boards and they're on our agenda to sign off. But if it can be done administratively more quickly, that might be the best approach. One last thing for Stuart. In your memo, Stuart, or there's an email from you to recall the proposal that the Coast Guard has to add dock space at Old Mill Boatyard for their boats. What's the status of that? Or is that some leverage for us?
Well, it could be. It's kind of a double-edged sword, I think. If you might remember, we've been looking at this for a number of years. There's 3 water-related committees that have voted, at least in principle, to install the docks. We were getting closer until COVID hit, and it's been kind of on the back burner. Now that this issue has arisen, I think there's legitimate questions as to whether we want to provide that. I look at it as a way of retaining or at least encouraging the commitment of the Coast Guard to this community. I do have concerns that the Coast Guard is going to place their 2 larger boats in Stage Harbor as opposed to Chatham Harbor. You know, they have their reasoning, and the reasons are it's very shallow over there. But and that is their reason, that it's shallow over at the fish pier, so we need to respond from Stage Harbor. Well, okay, I understand that, but then you don't bring a boat here that draws almost a foot more of water. So you just can't have it both ways. So I think that there's some value in providing that dockage to at least you know, show that we're committed to the Coast Guard and we want them to be committed to this community. It kind of is aggravating, frankly, that we would be supplying this when you're right that they have not been transparent with us. They have, you know, not that's a polite word, not transparent. I personally think we should pursue installing that dockage for them. I don't want them to use it as an excuse as to further why they can't be here. You know, in the recent past, they have been moving the boats back and forth according to tides from the fish pier to Stage Harbor and weather conditions and things like that. But my discussions with them of recently is, well, they're really interested in moving now both boats when they get the 245s over to Stage Harbor and responding to the bar and issues on the bar from Stage Harbor. They have a faster boat, so they can do it more quickly, and they're not restricted by tide like they are at the fish pier, is their reasoning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Stuart, for shedding some additional light on this. Thank you.
And Dean, we could put this, I'm sure the draft letter that we could put together could be considered a sign-on letter, which might be an effective method, whether it's signed by the town manager or by the board of the select boards. And that might be a better way to get.
Yeah, leave it up to the individual towns. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, for a matter of timing. Peter?
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of comments. I was going to mention what Stu mentioned eloquently, having the Coast Guard is now under Homeland Security. We have a particular problem being a small town on the coast of the United States and being the only one that's going to require the kind of boat that we need, if I understand that correctly. And what we're dealing with is a large organization and I agree, you know, large organization with part of Homeland Security. They are all over the world. And I remember seeing that many years ago when they did become part of Homeland Security. I'll also give you at least my perspective. We are moving in the right direction, and what you've done is, I think, is correct. Going to the Coast Guard, to getting our congressional leaders involved. However, Coast Guard in peacetime belongs to Homeland Security. They report directly to the Homeland Security secretary. That secretary has a staff. It includes a rear admiral who's a military advisor. I'm not sure, and this is a little bit out of my area, but we certainly should be going to Homeland Security and to the people that are over the Coast Guard to make our case. I think of course, I'm somewhat prejudiced, but you make a compelling case. And just because we're different doesn't mean that we have to fit in with all the other areas. Our circumstances are different. And from personal experience, being on the other side of this, you get something from the top down within the executive branch, somebody's going to pay attention. At least you get your message out, and we have to do that. And I'm not sure the right person to do that. I mean, you know, there are ways to do it. It is perfectly legal. You get your message to them to say, hey, this is wrong. And I think we have for the long term, we have a great argument that they have to look at. And oh, by the way, the Coast Guard has always been, protect our coastlines. They've always been that way. I don't know how many times we've had, people that have been taken care of by them, one included. So I believe we have to ante up, and our congressional legislators are one way to go. But at the same time, I agree with you. They are on the cusp. We need to get into the executive branch and go. If we have to go to the Coast Guard commander, he's a 4-star. He's an admiral, and get our message. Normally, you like to be, you play nicely, but we're past that, I think, and we don't have to be. I don't want to call it negative, but we don't have to be making our case in a negative fashion, but we provide the messages like we have been that show that there's a negative problem. So the bottom line is, I think we ought to go up through the executive branch also. And thanks very much.
Yeah, I think that's why we've engaged our advocate in DC to help us through the process. And a lot of times getting through a state senator or congressman is the way you go to get into the doors that you need to get into. So hopefully,
not always.
Not always. Okay. All right. Thank you. Jeff.
Yeah, I won't belabor a lot of the points that have already been made. This is a major deal for the town of Chatham, for the port of Chatham. But it's also, the point's been made. It's also a regional issue. If you go to Pleasant Bay on a sunny Sunday in the middle of July or August, you should see the boats come out of Orleans and Harwich that go over that bar, bombing over that bar. And I'll tell you, this is a regional issue. It's not just a Chatham issue, although it's a huge issue for Chatham, especially our commercial fishing fleet. But to put 2 45-footers over in Stage Harbor, to think they're going to take care of the bar is mind-numbing. That's just dumb. They're not going to be able to get around. They can't get around that Morris Island. They can't get around Morris Island at low water, right? So they're going to service the bar by going all the way around Monomoy and the Atlantic and up to the bar. Come on. So the real issue is, if we can't get our advocates to change their decisions, that this is going to fall back on the town. Monitoring those bars and taking care of those bars is going to fall back on our harbor master department, on the citizens of Chatham and Orleans and Harwich, maybe. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. They've already got a 45-footer here, right? Still, you said?
Yes, the fish pier.
Yeah. And they were certainly, they were at the best being generous. They were disingenuous with that, is what I hear from, the history here. And another one coming to keep on Stage Harbor it's just not right, especially given the history here and the great relationship we've had with them over time. So they should be on Lydia's Cove. It's crazy that they should be over there. They should be in a boat that can service the bars. And if they aren't, then you guys have already do a great job, but I think our town's going to be asked to do even more and monitoring the bars. I mean, that's the way I look at it, unless we can get them to reverse their decision. So I think intelligently, I think we need to kind of start to prepare for that. I mean, I already kind of have in my mind. I think we had to put all our advocacy efforts on, I think, the Homeland Security that you mentioned, Stuart. I forgot that. And what Peter said, I think we really ought to travel up the executive branch, as well as, work with our legislature, work with Keating and Markey and Warren as well. And a full court press from our neighboring towns in the Cape. And I'm really thrilled that Forrest brought it up at the, at the county level. That's smart. That's good.
Well, you remember that he worked for Studs.
Yeah, he worked for Studs.
So we had a great working relationship with Chatham.
And I so enjoyed your history, Stuart, because you're spot on with respect to the nature of the relationship over time, where it was way back when and where it is now. It really has changed. You're right. Very insightful. So I appreciate it. Keep up the good work. If there's anything I can do, let me know. I'll sign on to anything. This is a really important issue for our town and our fisher people and our recreational boaters as well. This is huge. Our waters are really different. The Nantucket Sound is one thing in a southwester, but boy, that bar is something else in a nor'easter. It is something else. Oh, anyway.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right. So if the board is okay with going, thank you, Jeff. If the board's okay with going forward in the direction we are, then we'll continue that, and with the suggestions from Peter and Dean. I think that those were good suggestions, and we'll double back with reporting out any actions that happen. But that's our plan. Okay.
I have
Go
one
ahead,
question. I had
Stuart,
one
go ahead.
question. Is it, and maybe you mentioned this, missed it. Is the float dock discussion going to be on a future agenda? Is that what the plan is?
I'm not sure if we have it yet, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure it's
Some point.
somewhere.
So,
Yeah.
so it'll be
I didn't
coming.
know where you guys were in the process of bringing that forward, Jill. I'm not sure whether where that's landing internally yet.
Okay, all right. Well, we can
Talk about
circle
it.
back on that. No problem.
Okay. All right. I don't think we planned on bringing up tonight, Stuart, if that was what
Okay,
your
yeah.
question was. Okay. All right. Thank you, Stuart, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right.
Good night.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Our next business agenda item is an update, our annual update, I believe, Cape Light Compact. Tonight we have Maggie Downey, who's making a presentation to us. Maggie, I know that I saw your name on, so.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chairman. Should I share my screen or are you sharing? How is that working? Every town does it a little differently.
I'm not sure what you guys talk to the staff about, but I guess it might be easier for you to share it if you're prepared to go.
Let me see.
Yes, Maggie, thanks.
Thank you, Meg.
Hold on. Sharing, is it working? Can you see my
Yes.
screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I lost
you.
you guys. I don't know where you went, but all right, I'm gonna start. I'll get
We
started.
see you. We see the screen and see you.
All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie Downey, and this is my annual update. We missed 2020, like most everything in life. We just skip right through that year. So I'll just get right started. And if you have questions, I can take them at the beginning, throughout the presentation, or at the end, whatever you prefer.
Why don't we wait till the end, Maggie, and then we'll take the questions, if that's okay.
Perfect. So the Cape Light Compact is, for the audience and for those of you who are not familiar, is a joint powers entity that was formed in 1997 by the 15 towns on Cape Cod and the 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard, with the express desire to administer and gain control over our energy efficiency funds and make sure that the funds that all of us pay on our electric bill are reinvested, stay on the Cape and Vineyard, or reinvested back on the Cape and Vineyard through energy efficiency programs. So the Cape Light Compact was approved by the state, and we've been administering and running energy efficiency programs since 2001. And since that time, we have reinvested $350 million of ratepayer funds right back into air sealing, installation, motors, and all of our public buildings, as well as residences and small businesses. And with that $350 million, we've saved over 5 billion kilowatt hours, resulting in $1.2 billion in benefits. So for every dollar invested, we get $2 in benefits that come out of that. And the graphics on the bottom just give some context. So what does that mean? That's the equivalent of taking almost 800,000 cars off their road for their average vehicle miles driven, or it's same as the amount of energy that a little over 400,000 homes use in 1 year. So talk a little bit about what's happened in the last 3 years, excuse me, in the town of Chatham. And just when I note, you'll see the numbers change from 2018, 19, and 20. Now, just to clarify that, we switched our database statewide. So prior to 2019, anytime you participated in the program, you showed up as a participant. So you might have had a home energy audit, and then 3 months later, you submitted a rebate for a dehumidifier or a new freezer, and you would show up 3 times. And because that was confusing customers, we're now tracking, and the database is modified by account holder numbers. So you can see over the last 3 years, we invested over $3.3 million in the town of Chatham for residents and businesses, and we've saved over 6 million kilowatt hours annually, and we've had a total number of participants with that skewed 2018 number of 10,448. Like the town, and many of us, we had to pivot during COVID because most of the work that the Cape Light Compact does is actually in a business, in your business or in your home. We had to suspend all on-site visits from March up until mid or early June. During that time, we had to train all of the contractors, make sure that they were outfitted with all proper PPE equipment. And so we offered customers a choice. We met the customers where they were at. So customers, and I'll talk a little bit about the businesses in a second, to have a choice to have a virtual home energy assessment or have a home or an on-site energy assessment. And in order to recognizing that many people in our communities, especially we're heavily tourist dependent, restaurant dependent, we enhanced our incentives through September of last year. So June, July, August, and September, if you signed up for a home energy assessment, there was 100% of the cost of air sealing and insulation were covered. Typically, it is only 75% of the cost paid for by the compact, and the customer would pay 25%. So we waived it in order to engage more people and encourage them to participate. We also had an enhanced refrigerator and freezer recycling incentive that ended in October. So these are just a look back at what happened in 2020. Traditionally, and now it is a $75 rebate. So if you've got an old fridge in your basement or your garage, if you call the compact, we will come and take it out of your home, recycle it 100%, recycle all the parts, and then you would get a $75 rebate. That was enhanced through to $125 through October of last year. We also offered a similar program for businesses. As a result of COVID, we pivoted again and offered virtual business assessments or on-site business assessments. Recognizing that many businesses were closed and weren't even able to participate in the program, these enhanced offers run through this June. So they started last year and they run up through June 30th of 2021, where we're offering again 100% incentives on LED lamps, fixtures, heating. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, lighting controls, water saving equipment, pipe insulation. And many of these incentives are designed and targeted towards our restaurant and hotel and hospitality industry. And we also have additional enhanced business incentives. All of this is always listed on the Cape Light Compact's website. And interestingly enough, even though in the very beginning for home energy assessments, many went virtual, it kind of reverted back over time in the last 5 months. People are now requesting and prefer on-site energy assessments, which is great. We're prepared and well equipped to handle that. So just wanted to focus, and I have another slide that'll show more details on rebates. New for 2021, we have ground source heat pumps, which is new to the program for anyone who they work best when you're doing new construction, but there are some customers who will choose when they're replacing their heat system to put in a ground source heat pump at $2,000 a ton. It was available this month. And air to water heat pumps, your typical heat pumps that you would see with a ducted mini split on the wall, are at $1,250 a ton. The average rebate is about $5,000 for a air source heat pump. And cost depends upon the style of your home, but that's about $13,000 to $15,000. Heat pump water heaters are also available for anyone with oil and propane. And then I just want to give a shout out for our Main Streets efforts. Main Streets, Chatham is scheduled for this fall, the week of September 21st to the 23rd, and we'll be working with the town to get the word out as it gets closer. But this is a kind of a blitz where our vendors, Rise Engineering and NRM, we contact the small businesses in advance. They know we're coming, and we bring, as the crews show up with all of the equipment. So those items that I showed you on a few slides ago, LED lamps, fixtures, pipe insulation, water saving equipment, everything they have on site. So it's a one and done, so that a business that's participating doesn't have to make a second appointment, doesn't have to take additional time out of operating their business. So we're really excited about the Main Street event that we'll be offering throughout Cape and Vineyard and in Chatham in September. This is just a snapshot of the 2021 residential rebates. Energy efficiency evolves and has evolved in the 20 years we've been administering the program. If you remember, we introduced CFLs, compact fluorescent lamps, those squirrely lamps, and we've now moved over to LEDs that have replaced CFLs. The type of appliances and how you heat and cool your home has evolved. So even if you have participated in the past, it's worth looking at our website or giving us a call. You are entitled to have a home energy assessment every other year, and we can come out and look at your home to see if there are opportunities to save you even more, to help you lower your electric bill, and something that you can do affirmatively to address climate change in our communities. I do want to talk a little bit about our renter and income eligible offer. The compact, for many years, we actually piloted this in Massachusetts, and it's now offered throughout the state by all of the utilities. When we began administering the program, we started to see that we were struggling to engage renters, specifically renters who were responsible for paying the electric bill, couldn't engage their landlord because it was an improvement to the facility, and that the landlord had to authorize and would be responsible for paying that copay of 25%, yet they didn't necessarily pay the electric bill, or and would not be getting that benefit. So what we offered and piloted and is now part of the mainstream program for renters, you have 100% no copay cost of all recommended insulation and air sealing upgrades. We also have expanded that for our moderate income population, which is 61 to 80% of the state median income, no copay, 100% of whether you own or rent your home if you're moderate income. I also just want to give a reminder for anybody who is on a fixed income that is at 60% or below state median income, and this doesn't mean they don't look at your assets. You could live in a very nice home but be a retired school teacher from 20 years ago that is living on a very modest pension. This program offers discount rates for electric and gas. The electric rate is a 30% discount off your total bill when you get on the electric discount rate. We also have fuel assistance, and we provide 100% of the cost of replacing and upgrading your heating system to a high efficiency heating system. We will upgrade and replace appliances, which are refrigerators, stoves, and dishwashers, as well as the standard air sealing and insulation of your home. So again, very important to get the word out about our income eligible offers. I just want to give you a little update on CVEO. I know I spoke to you, been speaking about CVEO for several years. It is still pending in front of the Department of Public Utilities. So CVEO was designed in response to the 2018 amendments to the Green Communities Act that was passed by the Massachusetts legislature, which encourages and requires strategic electrification, which is the electrification of our delivered fuels. So the compact put together a proposal to focus on non-gas heated homes and not natural. This is not applicable for natural gas. So it's oil, propane, and electric resistance homes that are deed restricted. So we are focusing on 250 homes that this is a pilot program where we will convert the heating systems to cold climate heat pumps. And again, we will then install PV systems to support the electrification of heating as well as reducing greenhouse gas. Because, until we bring in hydro, offshore wind, we still have high electric rates in Massachusetts. So especially for our low and moderate income customers, if you're going to electrify their heating system, even though it is a high efficient electric heat, it is still expensive. So pairing it with PV and then a battery for resilience as well as participation or demand response offers the opportunity and brings these homes almost to net zero. It also addresses the upfront cost barrier. What we have seen in the data is, solar is being installed at a great rate on the Cape as well as heat pumps. But what we're not seeing is them being installed in low and moderate income homes, yet we all pay electric bills, and it was a law of unintended consequences where we are subsidizing those that could afford to install solar through our REC buybacks in our bills, but yet low and moderate income customers have not installed solar. So this is a pilot effort. It's kind of unique because we're partnering with a third party. So we will go out to bid and select selected an entity that will install the heat pumps and the PV as well as the battery, and they will own them for a period of 10 years, at which time it will then revert to the homeowner at no cost. And the reason that we're doing this public-private partnership is we wanted to make sure that we were maximizing all of the state and federal tax credits, the investment tax credit, accelerated depreciation, the smart tariff, to lower the overall bill impact to ratepayers. Just something, a little brief update. Last May, I became aware that the USDA Rural Utility Service had a loan program. So the Cape Light Compact, at the direction of the board, we submitted an application to RUS, Rural Utility Service, to run a $4.9 million solar loan program. We were invited at the end of August to submit a full loan application, which we did in December of 2020, December 27th, and that is pending approval by RUS. And what that is it is a zero interest 20-year loan to the Cape Light Compact. And we would create a loan program for solar at, customers would be eligible for up to $50,000 for a term of 10 years at the interest rate right now at 2.25%. The compact went out to bid earlier in 2021 and has selected Cape Cod 5. Won the bid, and they will be administering the solar loan program and all, invoicing, customers collecting the funds, et cetera, all on our behalf should RUS approve our loan application. So excited about that as a new opportunity potentially. So this paired with CVEO should see some significant progress for residents and businesses. I just want to give a shout out to Chatham and all your hard work in your green communities. You were designated in 2022. We received 134,000. I know Cape Light Compact staff work closely with the town of Chatham, and we're here to continue offering our services as needed to Chatham as you continue to pursue opportunities in the green communities space. Just a brief slide on our Cape Light Compact power supply rates. These rates are competitive with basic service, the utility basic service. So the compact also offers this is 100% green offering, our basic service, where we match all of our load with wind recs, national wind recs. We also have, for those customers that really truly want to support local renewable energy, we have a CLC local green option and a CLC local green 100% option. So which either matches 50% of your customer's load or 100% with local renewable projects. And many of them come from the recs of our solar landfill projects throughout the Cape and Vineyard. So that ended my official presentation. I'm going to get out of this so I can see you guys. It's kind of odd. I feel like I'm talking to myself because I can't see anybody. So hopefully you guys will reappear. I can't see you, but hopefully, can you see me?
No, we can see your screen, so you might want to unshare your screen.
Yep, there we go. That's it.
Okay.
I'll get out of that. Did that work?
Yes.
Yes. And I can see you guys. I wasn't sure if I was staring at you or looking the other way. It was a little discombobulating, but anyway, here I am.
All right, great. Thank you, Maggie. I'm going to turn it over to Peter because he's his hand's up first. So go ahead, Peter.
Hello, Maggie. How are you?
Hi, Peter. Nice to see you again.
Yep. I just make a comment. I've probably been on forever on the Cape Light Compact for me anyway, almost as long as I've been full-time on the Cape, and Maggie has been there. We've been through some interesting times. What's amazing to see is where we are now compared to what it was like, 12 years ago, and the offerings that are being made, and even on the power supply area, Cape Light Compact is very competitive with, quote, the utilities or the basic service, and a number of times we've been lower than them, and and that's excellent. I just want to say that we just to mention that on the Main Street program, we were kind of like a test case a year ago, and a lot of things were learned. I know that Corey had him in his store, and he also had provided some good feedback to them. And so I look forward to it happening again, especially in September. One thing that I mentioned to you that might come up, and I'll start it here just in case somebody asks, has to do with the governor's new climate change legislation that was also from the legislation. I know that it was discussed at the Cape Light Compact Board, but generally you don't have the details of it. But maybe it'd be worthwhile just to let the board know and the public just generally where it's going and potentially what it would do for Cape Light Compact.
Okay. So first, there is a presentation on the Cape Light Compact's website that Peter just referenced that we talked about that gives a lot more background. So if anybody is truly interested, I would encourage them to go to the Cape Light Compact's website for our April board meeting packet. That has a PowerPoint presentation that Cape Light Compact Council gave. But over just some key highlights for the Cape Light Compact. One of the main things that it amended the Green Communities Act to require the compact and the utilities to include the social value of greenhouse gas emissions reductions when determining cost effectiveness. And I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but I don't know if you remember, everything we do, because these programs are fully adjudicated and approved by the Department of Public Utilities, has to have a benefit cost ratio of at least 1.0. So, and you look at, energy savings, the life of a measure, these very complicated spreadsheets for how you determine that, but you never looked at the societal costs or the reduction of greenhouse gases. So, and social values of greenhouse gases make something more cost effective. So a measure that might not have screened will now potentially screen. So there will be new offerings, and we're still navigating this, so I can't give an example of one that may be offered in the next 3-year plan. Because the Cape Light Compact's energy plans run in 3-year increments. We are in the last year of this 3-year plan, and we're planning for 22, 23, and 24, which will be submitted to the Department of Public Utilities on October 31st. That's a big change for the Cape Light Compact. There's also for the town, you may be interested, there's a specialized stretch energy code that looks at net zero buildings. DOER has to provide, and DOER has to issue guidelines on that, but that is something that's out there that all of the towns will be, I'm sure, discussing and considering as to whether or not they wish to adopt that. And then the other big impact for the compact is the state EOEA, Executive Office for Energy and Environmental Affairs, will set a greenhouse gas reduction goal. So not only will we be charged with saving energy like KWH, but we will be adding a new goal of greenhouse gas reductions that will be responsible for tracking. So those are the big highlights that I can think of, Peter. But again, presentations on our website that really goes into the bill much further.
No, thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Madam Chair. You're on mute.
Muted.
Thanks, Peter. Jeff?
Maggie, once again, thank you. You got a big fan in me. I've used Rise Engineering. They came and did an audit of our house. It was wonderful. They did a great job. I say this every year when you come, but I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Thrilled about the residential rebates. That's a great program, and I wish you well with the solar financing program. I put a big check mark beside that when I read your materials. What a great idea. And I hope it gets approved, and I hope you run with it because I think it's great. I would suggest that you tie into the chamber to let them know that you're going to do their small business, offer that small business service to them in the fall, it looks like. And thanks much for your help with the municipality and saving electricity here and being green. You hit the nail on the head for a whole bunch of things for me. So I'm a big fan. I actually changed my supplier from some outfit out of state that I hadn't even heard of to the Cape Light Compact this year. So anyway, I thank you for your efforts, and I think you guys are doing a great job, and please keep it up.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
let staff know.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Teen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Maggie, for your presentation. Very well done, very efficiently as well. And thank you to your organization and to Peter for his work on the Cape Light Board. I just had a question with respect to your approved contract. Those that installation, for example, and particularly those that might be installing solar. What is the protocol that, or does the compact have protocol in place or qualifications that they are required to meet for you to approve them? And do you have a program in place for monitoring the work that they actually do after the fact?
So, excuse me, Dean, you cut out. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what. So can somebody repeat that?
let me repeat that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you? Yes. With respect to your your contractors, your installation installers, your prospective solar installers, what protocol do you have in place for approving them? So when they get on your approved list, are there qualifications or standards that they're required to meet? And after they've done their work is on a particular project, does the compact have a process in place for monitoring the quality of the work that they've done?
So all of our independent contractors and HPCs, which are home performance contractors, are required to meet statewide requirements for participating in the bigger Mass Save program in the Cape Light Compact. Cape Light Compact also has contractual insurance requirements, indemnification requirements, all of those things. They have training requirements as well. Before they're actually onboarded, they're followed by RISE, who's the lead vendor, to make sure that so their work is QC'd throughout the process before they actually make our list of approved contractors. So there's a whole checklist that if you're interested, I can definitely send to you. I can't fight it off the top of my head, but there is a checklist of requirements that each of the vendors and contractors have to do. Then we also do periodic QC throughout all of our programs, as well as evaluations. All of these programs are evaluated, which includes further QC of the work. I believe jobs are about 5% QC'd on the residential side, but I would have to confirm that. I was just looking at something today on that. So again, these are all third-party vendors that are QCing the work of other vendors.
Okay, thank you.
And for solar, because we don't really have any, we're not authorized to do solar yet. We don't have anything in place, but we are actually developing, because that's a requirement of the federal loan program, to have exact QC work and evaluation work in place in order to move forward.
Okay, great, thanks.
Great. Maggie, thank you. I just had RISE come into my house probably a couple of weeks ago. During COVID, everything was fine. They were, did the whole protocol. It was really helpful. Shared a lot of resources, which was really informative. I really think the business initiative for downtown is a really great program. And the renter and income eligible offer, it sounds like you're covering all bases for the Cape, and it's really, really cool program. So appreciate everything that you're doing over at the Compact. Corey, I didn't know if you had any questions for Maggie.
No, it was a very positive experience having the crew come to the store. A year plus ago, they went through a couple of things with the faucets and the lighting and stuff. So very beneficial. And I think anyone in September who could take advantage of it, I'd recommend it.
Great.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Peter, your hand's back up again.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just a comment.
Sure.
The one thing that I really enjoy about being part of Cape Light Compact, if you take a look at the Cape Light Compact staff, it is young. I mean, I don't mean young like 60 or 50. This is a young group that are having babies. we're keeping Cape Codders on the Cape. It is, and they're super, I don't know, professional and energetic. It's just a great organization, and it's a good training ground. I mean, you get Mass Maritime people in there all the time, so it's really that part is it's a way we should have more of these as far as businesses that have younger folks. And anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was lovely to see everybody, and maybe next time we'll actually be in person again. So take care, stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you very much for your
Bye, Jill.
time tonight. Okay, so we're going to move on to the West Chatham Roadway project update. I know Selectman Metters had put this item on the agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Jill because I'm sure that our director, Temple, is here as well. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we do have Tom Temple, who's our Director of DPW, who put forward a cover memo for the board's consideration, primarily focused on scheduling, but also in follow-up to a meeting that we had at the State House with Selectman Metters and Selectman Kokolas, Select Board members. This was an agenda item at the request of Select Board Member Metters. So we're happy to present where we are now and then open it up to your questions and those of the public.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Select Board. The agenda that I provided was an agenda for the remaining work that was going to take place between April 26th and May 10th, with the exception of the paving, which I mentioned is tentatively scheduled for May 17th. The work for between April 26th and May 10th is the remaining sidewalk work that's being done for the shared path, the stone masonry wall work that's being completed, landscaping and loaming that's taking place out there today, street light installations, which they're performing all day today. Also the installation of traffic signs and split rail fence, adjusting of all the structures and cleaning out of all the catch basins and all the structures that were put in during the construction this last couple of years. We also have the 3 services that are being put in place for 610 Main Street, which is your gas, your 2-inch domestic water, and your 8-inch fire suppression for that site. So that's all being done within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I did mention later in my agenda that there was a change that when I sent it to Shauna, originally I wanted to include the dates that I just mentioned from the 26th to the 10th. I also wanted to mention that there was a change. The state did approve 11 trees to be planted instead of 8 that I mentioned in my original memo. So that's on the north side where there was no trees scheduled as part of the original approved plan. So we met with the state and did a walkthrough last Wednesday, the 21st, and came to conclusion they just forwarded the drawings back to us for us to take a look and make sure that they didn't miss any of our discussions during that meeting. Other than that, I'm free to answer any questions anybody might have regarding the project.
Great, Tom. Thank you so much. Corey, did you want to go first since this was your item, and then Dean, if that's okay, Dean?
Sure, that's fine. No,
Okay.
I appreciate. So it appears that in following up with the letter that was sent out, several adjustments were made to the project. Like the post office was adjusted, et cetera. So it looks like they were responsive to some level of the concerns that we did express. For starters, the one area that I'm still a little bit, I guess, I have some concern over, and it may be something that, maybe our traffic safety study committee is going to look at down the road, is the George Ryder South intersection. I know they're putting through that, the cobblestone and the beautiful masonry work, along each side of the road. My observation on that is still cars coming in and out of there. While it is a 2-way traffic, road, they seem to be hovering on, kind of in the middle of the road. So that's something I do want to keep an eye on. I know, I'll let the neighbors and the residents of that area kind of speak more. more thoroughly on that if they so choose, because their experience is a lot more than mine. I'm just driving by on a daily basis, but I do want to keep an eye on that intersection, whether there'd be some kind of median line painted between, at the entrance, just to kind of nudge cars to go to one side or the other. But I mean, I do appreciate some of the accommodations they did put forth in response to the letter. So I appreciate the update, and I look forward to public comment for other people's perspectives on what they've seen. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you'll see that once they do the top course of pavement, which is tentatively scheduled for May 17th, weather permitting, immediately after that, probably within the next 2 days, with decent weather, then they would come out and do the traffic markings and the line paintings for the whole project. And that there, the channelization, your markings that are put there to keep the traffic where they're supposed to go will all be defined and put as approved on the original approved plans. So we're getting close. I think realistically, they've jumped up ahead of schedule from where we thought we'd be at this point. I really think that over the next couple of weeks, I think that realistically, if we have some decent weather, they could be completed hopefully by the middle of June, I would think, or the 15th, so they wouldn't have to come back. And when I say that, I'm talking about the internal site, cleaning up all their debris area where they have for their storage of their trailers, where they're utilizing that area for their work zone, for the materials, stone, etc., and miscellaneous cleanup and touch up. So it's very minor stuff at the very end. I think come May 20th, you'll see everything. It'll be pretty well wrapped up out on that site with some minor cleanup.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom, just a couple of questions. With respect to the post office entryway, it looks to me that they made a revision on the left side, the curbing on the left. They widened that a little bit, spread it out. Doesn't look like they've done anything on the right-hand side. Do you have anything to comment on that?
Yeah, I think they went as far as they could, so they wouldn't be channelizing the traffic into any obstructions on that right side. If you're talking about as you're coming into the site, you're talking about
yes,
right side.
Looking at it.
Yeah, they took the transitions, they took the roundings out, Selectmen, and they did the transitions, diving them down on each side. What it did was it gave you additional 3 feet before the transition starts back up from what'll be 0 to 6-inch reveal on each side instead of rounding into it. That eliminates any of the cars from going into curbing that's coming in because people were complaining about the tight movement going in. So I think it's a lot better. I think it's I've driven it in my vehicles and trucks and just to see if there's any issues, but I haven't experienced it. I've come in when other people are coming out. When I did the walkthrough with the state, I pulled in there to meet with the state. I pulled in just to see traffic coming in and out. So it's a lot better than it was. I think anybody that drove there before, the state had it as tight as they could, which is their standard. They've opened it up. I'm sure that they weren't happy about it, but like they said in their letter, they accommodated most of our concerns that we had asked them to do, which was good.
And a second question, Tom, in your memo, it's actually in the letter from Mary Jo Perry. She refers to the 5-year moratorium. Can you explain what that is for the benefit of the public? I think I know what it is, but.
Normally when the state utilizes funding to do their roadways over, there's typically a 5-year moratorium from when they're completed the project that you can't put a shovel in the ground and dig up the brand new roadway. That's the moratorium that they typically refer to. Will they allow it if a new business came in and they were developing a land? Probably, but it would cost, there's a great cost with it because they would probably require to use controlled density fill for their backfill operation. Some people call it, from the bedding of the pipe up to the base binder course of the roadway would be the controlled density fill. And then you'd have your paving of 8 inches of pavement to meet the standard of the roadway that's out there. So it's pretty costly, and what they normally do is they'll go probably 25 feet beyond the limits of each side of the trenches that are out there, and they make them normally go curb to curb. So it can be quite expensive if you go and do something in that, if they give you permission to go in that 5-year period, but they normally don't.
What if there were to be discovered the need for a particular modification in the design? For example, if there was a turn that was too sharp, left or right,
That's something that they would do themselves, because if it becomes
kind of
an issue or a
remediation take place?
they would take care of that themselves. We would bring it to their attention, or the police if there's issues and there's any type of history of stuff, then we could document it and have them come out and take a look at it.
Okay. And the last question I had, Madam Chair, you referenced a meeting at the State House that select board members could coalesce on matters. Was that recent, and is there any further enlightenment on that either member might want to share?
That was quite a few years ago. We went up there, and I believe it was in 2019.
Oh, that was the one in the past.
Yeah, that's the one in the past.
Okay, thank you. Then I withdraw the question.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Jack?
Thanks, Shireen. Just 3 or 4 quick comments. The PO is much better, I think. They widened it. I'm really thrilled to hear that they're going to put more trees than we originally thought. On the north side, I think that's going to enhance the roadway. I was going to ask about the 5-year moratorium. I was confused by it as well. I get to see it every weekend. I don't see it much during the week or at all during the week, but on the weekend, so I can see kind of the progress being made. I think they're making steady progress, and I really think it's so much better to try to take a left out of George Rider Road or a left out of Barn Hill Road without taking your life in your hands. So anyway, I think those aspects of the project have been really well done. And I think MassDOT, when we really take a down and dirty look at MassDOT's performance, they've done a really good job. And I think hopefully, Tom, they've been good for you to work with and the town to work with as well. I like their letter back, their responses back. So anyway, thank you.
I think they've come through and stepped it up for the town of Chatham. I think we hit all the points when we were going through the design, the issues that we had, and even during construction, and they've been amenable to come out and repair it and then respond back to us, which is something you typically don't see from a state agency when you have a project of that cost. But it was good to see that they will work with the town, and they want to get the job done and done on time, given all the circumstances that we had with COVID and delays associated with it. So,
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and Lawrence Lynch too. Couldn't say anything better about that company. Has done a great job, I think. Peter, you have some questions, comments? You might want to unmute yourself. There you go. Oh, try again.
Yeah, I'm having problems with, is that off now?
Yes, you're fine now.
Okay, good, thanks. First, let me thank Tom. Dean brought up the meeting when we were at the state. I thought Tom did an excellent job. We talked a number of things, and 2 of them that were important, at least to me at the time, were the streetlights, which were noted in the memo. And they said, I guess it says obviously they've agreed to wire them so that we could just shut off every other one if we need to. I mean, the question is, does the lighting engineer come in who wants light bulbs lit all the time? But that we'll worry about that when it comes, because that even the engineers there said, well, the lighting guys tend to overdo it, if I remember what he said correctly. And the second part were the trees. If I remember, we went in with like wanting to have 10 and then said 8. Now we're at 11. That's super. I think that's just great. And the whole idea, the question that was brought up on the moratorium was just in case. That was one of the ones that a couple of people wrote to me about, and I forwarded it to Tom, and he included it in the letter. And I think their answer is appropriate. We'll look at it, But we can agree to it given certain conditions, and that's all good. So, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, I'm just going to ask if there's anybody from the public that would like to make a comment or ask some questions. Anybody on the phone can speak out as well at this point, and I'll put you on a list. Okay, I see one hand up, and that's Elaine Gibbs. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that I think Lawrence Lynch has done a very good job about implementing the design of the plan. But in terms of our request from people on George Ryder South saying that it was a very difficult situation to navigate, their response was they've reviewed the area and believe the final configuration is adequate and meets the design intent of the project. I know a number of people who live there, and they would disagree with you when you're coming from the east, going west, and you get through the roundabout and you want to turn left. They have almost been rear-ended because people think they're continuing through to go down towards Harwich. I think it's very dangerous. It's almost as if they have to turn a little backwards. And I frankly can't believe that the stone walls are lovely. I did not know, anyone had that capacity to build such beautiful stone walls, but to put those at the entrance of George Ryder South as another obstacle for the drivers, I think is an issue. And they were told about this before, and now they've made it really permanent. And I think that's going to be an issue. I would also disagree that the entrance to Job Lot from Route 28 is sufficient. People are trying to negotiate and avoid the granite curbs. So when you turn in, you tend to go to the left so you don't blow your tires. And you can't do that. If a car is sitting there, you can't do it. And that is a congested area because it's right at the roundabout. So if someone's trying to get into Job Lot and somebody's trying to get out, I think that's something that has to be put on the checklist, that they will come back and fix it if it turns out. The problem now is that they have put 2 huge lights at either entrance, which is going to restrict how much they can widen that area. And I did want to talk about the lighting because I was on the hardscape, softscape committee. And one of the things we said was that we should have a balance if we're going to do the lighting to have it on both sides of the road and to reduce the number in half and stagger them. Instead, they're all on the north side. I don't believe any of those big black lights are going to go on the south side. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, they were never intended to go on the other side. And if they did put additional lights on the south side, you would have doubled the number of lights. And this was said during the meetings with everybody during that working group, that you would double the number of lights, you would double the number of handholds and the electrical conduit cost to put it on both sides. So they weren't amenable to that because of the huge cost that would be associated with it. And that would be something that the town would bear for the cost. So we said that the town wasn't willing to pay for the additional lights. But that group indicated that they didn't want anything moving forward to the Board of Selectmen, as I recall, and nothing going before the board to town meeting for that.
Okay, what our recommendation was is half the number of lights on the north side and half on the south and stagger them so you would have equal lighting. Be that as it may, I think we were right. When I've seen the lights, the number of poles going down that corridor, the black poles, 27 feet high, imbalanced because the light's going to be shining on the westbound lane, but not the eastbound lane. My biggest concern that I have right now is there's 2 things. In the guidelines, Mass DOT's own guidelines on roundabout lights, is they do say that you have to move the lamppost lights as far back from the roundabouts as possible, that they should be identified critical conflict areas. And they have a diagram and they show the places you don't put lights. And they are in the roundabout right on the corners. There is one as you're going west. It's right there as you enter the roundabout on the right on the street. It should have been recessed. And then as you go into George Ryder, they're right there. My biggest concern is there are so many right up against the granite curbs, the entire corridor, My understanding is these are aluminum, I believe, and they're breakaways. So if a car hits them, they break. And I would hope, my question are the utility companies going to come in and rework all the utility poles on the south side? Because when you're driving down there, you see all the utility wires cross over the street, and they're within 5 to 10 feet of some of those poles. So if somebody going west hits those poles and they break away, they're going to take down the power lines. They don't like planting trees near power lines, but they put up lighting posts within 10 feet, and there's 12 of them. And we could have done with half, and I can't believe that unless they're going to do it, and hopefully they will, those utility lines that cross over from, it's in front of, one of the good examples is in front of Oppenheim Medical Center across, and then up near the hamburger store restaurant. The poles, if they get hit going west, they are going to take down the power lines. And I think aluminum conducts electricity, so that might be another issue. I hope they clean up the utility poles on the left, because right now, when you drive down there and you have wood utility poles on the left, and then you have these other lights that I think are overkill. I think there are so many things people have to focus on now driving down there. In addition to everything else in the granite curbs, we now have all these lights that are going to be an incredible distraction for drivers. So I hope that utility companies will come out and clean up those lights on the left, on the south side, to make sure that if somebody hits those poles and they break away, that they don't take down all the power lines. And I would agree. So you're saying also that it's going to be substantially done by June, but when are they going to ultimately sign off? Are we going to have the summer to go through this and be able to see how it's working in terms of obstacles and that kind of stuff, and that Mass DOT would come back and fix it before we actually sign off on the project?
All right, well, you've got quite a few things there. Let me touch on some of the beginning things that you talked about. Each of the roundabouts, when we originally looked at the 75% design and 100% design plans, concerned about the lumens for the lights that were going to be affected, because right now, currently, the existing lights out there were every fourth pole. By putting that many poles out on that job, and 5 lights at one roundabout and 6 at the other, I felt was overkill. That's why we asked them to go every other, so we have the ability to turn it off once we go ahead and see everything in place, so that we can have their engineers come out who did the photometrics of the design for this out there, so we can show them that, you know, there is definitely an overkill on those lights, so we can turn off, you know, every other and still be in a good position for safety. With respect to the, you know, one of your other comments was for the safety and breakaway poles. It's my understanding that the breakaway poles, if they're hit, that they break, that kills that circuit, similar to what you have when you have an outage, when a line comes down and trees knock down the wires. It trips that. They no longer are live. It becomes dead. That's my understanding. I can confirm that with Mass DOT, get something from them in writing, and make sure that that's the case. The cleanup of the existing poles on the south side that you were talking about, you know, with the utility lines, I'll find out from them if the utility companies are totally completed out there, or do they still have miscellaneous touch-up work with the new poles being set. I haven't seen any change orders or field changes come through showing any of the proposed wiring changes to any of those that you mentioned, but I certainly can ask them that as well. I certainly can get back to you and to the board with my findings.
Thank you. I guess I was surprised that they would put up these poles within 10 feet of utility power lines coming across the street without a plan to not have them that close in the event a car hits them and knocks them down. Again, I think that to shut off every other light I think they're going to find out they had too many lumens there, and we have to live with 12, 14 poles going down the street when we all knew that that was overkill. But they said they had to do it, and now they're in, and then we may end up shutting off half of them. And I think that's unfortunate because I think aesthetically it is very unattractive, in addition to having more obstacles for cars. But I appreciate you talking to them about it, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to make some adjustments over the summer after we get to see what it's really like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from the public or comments? Okay, Tom, thank you for the update this evening. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Very, very nice to see you all again.
Yeah, good to see you
Good.
too. All right, we're going to move on, and our next item is wood waste reclamation facility, TW Nickerson, ownership and lease transfer. So I think this is something, Jill, you're going to give us an overview and perhaps.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's been a proposed transfer of ownership for TW Nickerson, and the attorney Paul Litwin had contacted Town Council Pat about the process.
Can you hold on just a second, Jill? I'm just going to reach out to the public and ask them to please either mute their phones or mute their audio on the computer because we're getting a lot of feedback, paper shuffle, and we're not able to hear the presentation. So we need to hear the presentation in order to move forward. Okay, go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. So the transfer of ownership of TW Nickerson from Steve Clark to Peter Hoppel is being proposed. And this has been a long-term lease that the town has had with TW Nickerson for the wood waste reclamation facility. And as you might know, we have an enterprise fund that we authorize the payments for or from the lease to go into that for groundwater monitoring. So in your packet, you have a lot of materials. You have the request from Cape Coastal Builders, Peter Hoppel. I'm sorry if I'm not saying your name right. There's correspondence to back and forth between Town Council, Pat Costello, and Attorney Litwin. And the question before the board is if there's any additional information needed for the transfer, and specifically the proposed purchaser's financial status and capability from a personnel and equipment perspective to fulfill the lease obligations. So with that, I'm happy to bring it back to the board, and Town Council Pat Costello is on the call, and I see Attorney Litwin is on there as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill. We have a question from Dean.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to put a question to Pat, but I was a little bit confused from the materials about the historical record here as to what exactly had transpired in the past. So I took it upon myself to check Secretary of State's corporate records, as well as the Registry of Deeds records and town meeting records. So I was able to clear up, but for the benefit of the public, as I think some of the select board members may already know this, but it wasn't clear to me. The original lease was between private parties, Birmingham's and Nickerson Company, and then the town in 2007 acquired the property through the land bank funding, and the lease was assigned to us. So that's how we got it. And there was a contingency of that transaction that the lessee was going to essentially clean up some of the disposal materials and then file for the appropriate permits and operate stump dump, which has been taking place. And that's why we set up the enterprise fund. So that was helpful to me to know all of that, because I was confused as to why the town was involved in this at all. But Pat says, and I know Pat's on, in an email to Alex and Jill on April the 5th, he says, he says that we should ask Nickerson at a minimum to provide us with some indication of the prospective purchaser's financial status and capability from a personnel and equipment perspective to fulfill the lease obligations. Well, we did get a very, I thought, very comprehensive letter from Mr. Hoppel, dated April 9th, which talks about the equipment and other physical capabilities to do the work, and that seemed pretty reassuring to me. I don't know to what extent, Pat, that we should be inquiring into the prospective purchaser's financial status. So any light you can shed on that. And I know we have the attorney on the line here, so I would appreciate what we're supposed to do at this point.
Okay, Pat, can you weigh in?
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Attorney Litwin, who is also participating in the meeting tonight, initially contacted me about this transfer of assets within between the corporation and the new owner. And Attorney Litwin's initial read on the matter was that it doesn't really constitute the need for an assignment or transfer, because it's really a legal transfer of entities from one entity to another by virtue of the asset transfer. And the email that Dean referenced was drafted by me to suggest to the town that while I may respectfully disagree with that full conclusion, I think the board's due diligence would entail a determination that the transferee, in this particular case, Mr. Hoppel's entity, has the financial wherewithal to fulfill the lease obligations and has the personnel and equipment necessary to carry on the work at the site. And that's based on the provisions within the original lease document that reference assignments or subleases of the lease. It provides in Article 7 in each of the original leases that the lessee may not assign this lease otherwise without the prior written consent of the lessor, the town, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld, provided that the assignee or sublessee has the financial resources to pay the obligations herein and has the personnel to operate the equipment required. So it's those lease provisions that were the premise for my statement that we should at least confirm the financial assets of the transferee.
So I guess the question is, how do we go about doing that? I mean, I think Mr. Hoppel is on the call. Is Mr. Litwin his attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Oh, he's the attorney for Nickerson Corp., I believe. Yes.
right.
Okay. I guess I would.
So Mr. Bowers, are you Mr. Hoppel's attorney? Is that what we're understanding?
I am Anthony Bowers here on behalf of Mr. Hoppel. Thank you.
All right. So we have Anthony Bowers representing Mr. Hoppel. Mr. Litwin is Mr. Nickerson, and then the town has Pat. All right. So we all know who is who now. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Shireen, for clarifying that. I guess I just wanted to ask Mr. Hoppel or his counsel, what information can you provide to us so that we can be comfortable that we're satisfying Article 7 of these leases, that you have the financial resources to pay the obligations that are required, set forth in the lease documents, as Attorney Costello has outlined for us.
Well, I would disagree with Pat a little bit and agree with Mr. Litwin that this is an assignment or transfer. This is a stock purchase, and I would defer to paragraph 10 that is binding upon successors. But Mr. Hoppel has provided a letter, and I'll let him speak a little bit more to his financial ability and wherewithal to run T.W. Nickerson's operations as smoothly as they have been in the past.
Mr. Hoppel.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Hoppel. Welcome.
Hi. So my name is Peter Hoppel. I currently run two construction companies, Coastal Builders and Eastern Atlanta Construction. I've been in business on my own for close to 20 years now. I really maintain a really high quality standard for the people I keep around me and the work that we do. I'm a great fit for this position at TW Nickerson. I have a lot of passion for the earthwork portion of my business now, and I've been running equipment for years. In terms of my financial resources, you guys can see I just completed a 5-lot subdivision in South Chatham, right across the street from 67 Middle Road. That was my own acquisition, and we funded the whole thing. I currently keep anywhere between 8 and 20 different construction projects going at the same time. So I mean, I think that takes a little wherewithal and financial stability to be able to run that kind of operation. That's all I got.
I appreciate that. I just in response to Attorney Bowers, I know that you differ from Mr. Costello, but he's on the legal interpretation here, but he's our town council, and we're going to pay attention to him, I think, on that. But I do appreciate that. Again, I did find your letter, Mr. Hoppel, very helpful. So thank you.
I have a brief work description of some of the more notable site contracts that I've kind of self-performed over the past 5 years close to town, including the Handlers Auto Salvage Restoration Project in Harwich Port and the development of Williams Way. Just as a resume piece for you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Litwin, your hand is up. Did you have something you'd like to add, Attorney Litwin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was just when you had thought that I was counsel for Mr. Hoppel and I was pointing out that I wasn't. I knew Mr. Bowers was here.
Okay.
To the select board members, I represent TW Nickerson, Inc. and Stephen Clark.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Jeff, go ahead, Jeff. Jeff, I think you're muted.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for Mr. Hoppel. Mr. Hoppel, how long has Cape Coastal Builders been in business, and how many employees do you employ?
Cape Coastal Builders has been in business for, I believe, 17 years. And I've always kind of been in the trades before that on my own and working for other people. The most direct employees that I've had has been 12 directly. I kind of employ a lot of people as subcontractors through different groups. I probably have over 40 people working for me every day on 15 different projects currently.
Just a quick follow-up. TWs, how many will you employ?
I believe TW comes with about 6 field employees and 3 office employees. I intend to keep that staffing, and I have 2 people that work directly for me in my site operations right now.
And the stump dump is integral to the overall operation of TW.
It's a big part. It's a big part of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to hear you're going to keep everybody on. Thank you.
Okay. I guess the question is, would you be willing to submit any financial statements to assure the board, the select board, that the requirements that our attorney is saying that we need necessary?
I suppose. I mean, do you guys want to see some bank account statements or something? I have some money in some accounts, and I can show you my my monthly billing statements through Cape Coastal Builders or something somehow that shows the whatever makes you guys comfortable, obviously.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I personally, I'm not really sure that we need to, but our attorney has asked us to has made that recommendation, and we listen to, obviously to what we want to be assured that this lease, I guess we can all know that you are, that you have a good business and you've been running your business well and efficient. But is that enough to satisfy the board's requirement to sign the lease? I guess that's where we're at. And I think Corey has his hand up, so maybe he has some insight that he can share too. Corey, you may be muted. There we go.
Are we good? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, good. Technology at its finest. Anyway.
Right.
No, Mr. Hoppel's previous response was kind of what I was looking for. I mean, obviously we're going to follow town council's recommendations. He's counseling us, but Mr. Hopple's willingness to provide, he stated several resources that he could provide the town without hesitation. So I'm not really looking to press it. I mean, obviously, I'm kind of reading on character through the internet a little bit, but it wasn't hesitating. It wasn't beating around the bush. I think it's an opportunity. His resume, at least the information that's provided, is a little more reassuring that he'll be able to perform the duties. And his lack of hesitation and willingness to provide documents was a little more comforting to me of his character. So I don't think it's necessary. I do appreciate Pat bringing it forward for at least for consideration. But I do think his resume is for me is sufficient for the wood waste reclamation facility of our TW. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Okay, I know Attorney Litwin had his hand up, but I think Pat wants to respond to something that the select board has said. So I'll let Pat go first and then Attorney Litwin. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note that my suggestion that the board confirm Mr. Hopple's financial wherewithal was made before we had any information whatsoever about him or his operation. Since that time, he submitted the letter, which is in the package that the board has reviewed tonight, and he has provided this supplemental information here tonight. I am by no means suggesting or advising that any complete financial overview be conducted. It's really a matter of security for the board. At the time when that email was generated, Attorney Litman and I had a brief telephone conversation. He advised me of the circumstances of the transfer, and I advised the board as to what I felt would be an appropriate check for the board to undertake. And since that time, we've received the letter. Mr. Hopple and his counsel have appeared here tonight and provided the board with sufficient information. So it's up to the board. I by no means think any further detailed documentation is absolutely necessary.
Okay. All right. So Attorney Litwin and then Attorney Nicastro and then Jeff. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to simply point out that the obligation under the lease is only $25,000 a year, not a month. It's not a huge amount of money.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Dean?
Yeah, I was just going to add, based on the conversation tonight, I'm comfortable with what we've heard. And I think that we have adequate protections, Pat, as I read the lease, in case there is a default, that the town has remedies there. So I don't need to see anything more. And I think Corey's comments were very much on point as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jeff?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move to approve the transfer of the TW Nickerson business premise lease and stump dump commercial leases as requested.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on that. Okay, let's take a vote. Peter Kokolas.
Aye.
Corey.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
The chair says aye. All right, Mr. Hopple, good luck with your new venture. And we will have I'm sorry, did I hear something?
No public comment on this?
There was an opportunity to comment on this at the beginning of our meeting.
At the beginning of this meeting.
Yes, and I called for public comment on our business agenda items and nobody.
I wasn't here for that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
So you guys are gonna let this go with all the stuff that could go on with this, and you're gonna let it go. You have no information on this. This should go out to bid.
I want to say.
And you guys just put your hands up. So whatever. What a joke this board is.
Wow.
Okay, we're gonna just mute that participant right now. He said his piece. All right. All right. So we've taken a vote. Thank you very much, and we'll. Good luck with your new venture. Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Bye bye. Okay. All right. we are going to move on to our next is consideration of reappointment of our town council. Jill, a little background on where we're at here.
Sure, Madam Chair. So the firm Lewis and Costello Condon and Pfaff was appointed as our town council back in 2015, and they were reappointed in February of 2018. And with that, it's our request for the board to reappoint the firm Lewis and Costello Condon and Pfaff with Pat Costello as our lead town council for another 3-year term. And happy to answer any questions. I hadn't received any comments or concerns about Mr. Costello's appointment or the firm's representation. And there really isn't a performance mechanism for town councils. But if there were any issues, I'm sure the board would have notified me or town council directly through the chair.
Okay, and I know that we don't have a time frame on the appointment, Jill, that you've left that period open-ended. So you're asking us to make a decision on how long we want to appoint him for. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, I would recommend 3 years, just consistent with the other previous appointments, but certainly there's no prohibition from the board to do it longer or shorter. I was just looking at what the past practice of the board was for a 3-year appointment.
Okay. All right. Comments from the board. Dean?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Jill, is the proposed fee agreement that's attached to the package, is that the same that's been in effect to date? Is there anything different from it? From what we've had
I
in place?
haven't seen an updated fee schedule, so we've been working under this one since 2015.
Yeah, so, but the arrangements itself, apart from the schedule, are the same.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, Madam Chair, I've been on the board for 6 years, and Pat's been counsel all that time, and I've been very, very satisfied with the firm's performance and Pat's knowledge and skill and incredible accessibility and availability to the town. And I speak not just as a selectman, but as someone that used to do this work as an employee of the city of Quincy. So I'm very, very comfortable with approving an extension of this arrangement for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. I think Corey was next. Go ahead, Corey.
No. I mean, when I first saw this in our packet, I was wondering, like, gee, why do we do these appointments after elections? But looking back at our timeline, March of 2015 was the first contract with Pat and this firm, and then again in February of 2018. So basically, we're actually probably a little bit late in our 3-year review in a sense. So we're right on a normal time schedule. So looking at that history, it makes me a little more comfortable with it. I would be comfortable with a 3-year renewal, and I don't have any concerns. So.
Okay. All right, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo the sentiments of my fellow select board members. I really appreciate Pat's availability and accessibility. He's always available, always gets back, responsive, timely, thoughtful. I think he's given a great service to the town, or a very good service to the town, and I'm certainly going to support another 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Peter.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. And I echo also the other select board members. Anytime we've had an issue, Pat has been very responsive and also has a way of explaining things in very simple terms, and I appreciate that. And I would support 3 years.
All right, I agree. He's been very helpful through my process as a select board member, and I've appreciated the time that he's availed himself to a lot of our challenging projects that we've had and meetings. So I just need a motion if anybody's willing to offer one.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I move that the board reappoint Lewis and Costello Condon and Pfaff LLC as town council for a term of 3 years.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay. Well, there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. Okay, Jeff,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. All right, well, thank you. Thank you. And so the next steps is just to is there a re-signing of a contract? Is that how this works, Jill, for Pat? Or
We'll take care of it administratively, but it's important to record the appointment or reappointment per se. And so we'll have that for our files. And with, unfortunately, with some of the COVID transitions, we weren't able to get to this before now, but he remained ready and available almost 24/7. So just congratulate Pat on his service to the town. It's been excellent.
thank you. Thank you, Pat, for your service
Thanks,
to the
Pat.
town. We appreciate it. And
Yes.
you're behind the scenes there on your Teams meeting. So thank you very much. Okay, so
Thank you.
Hands up, Madam Chair.
all right. Okay, thank you. So our next item is a consider committee appointment, and that's for the Charter Review Committee. We had one candidate come forward for that. So, and that is one vacancy for appointment until the work is completed. And I realize the Charter Review has not met. A couple of the committees have not been able to meet, but there was a vacancy that was left open by the chair, one of the committee members leaving town. So I will take a recommendation. Peter.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move to appoint J. Michael Shell to the Charter Review Committee until work is completed, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, we'll take a vote. Cory,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
the chair says aye. All right, so we have a new appointee. Okay, great. All right, so that's going to conclude our business agenda and discussion. So our next is, I need a motion. We will be going into executive session without return to open meeting. So if somebody can make a motion.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I move that the board go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, parenthesis, litigation status update. And the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body with no return to open session.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We'll take a roll call. Jeff,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So that concludes our regular meeting this evening. Thank you everyone who attended and participated, including the public participants and the staff. And we will see you next week. All right, and we're going into another meeting room.